and thank you very much for coming. And we contacted our mayor and we told him that, we were thinking about doing the role of arts in STEM. So he sent us a very nice letter. So I'm going to read this letter to you. Proclamation. To the people of Akron, whereas the University of Akron, College of Business, and other affiliated institutions envision uniting the arts and humanities with science and technology, and whereas a wide variety of people and organizations engaged in science, technology, and engineering, math, and management. I had to add management because I'm from the management department. Management and arts in Ohio were networked to support and sponsor this novel learning event for the growth of the Akron community. And this is the most important part. Whereas operations team led by Claudine, and I would ask all our students to rise because they worked very hard with families and jobs. So led by Claudine Arm, Andrew Stevens, Reshmi Walanath, and Hussein Yusufi. Research team in enterprises. Finance team led by Sweta Bengi, Fatima Farheen, some people are up there. Vivek Vupala and Andrew Wims, research team in universities. Planning team led by Sandhya, up there. Mohammed Hussain and Mark Walbert. Mark. Research team for women. And marketing team led by Sandeep Mekha and Bhargava Buddha, Venkat Nara, and Neelama Malpuri. Research STEM in high school. So we looked at STEAM for different constituencies. And expert speakers such as Nick Nisley, he drove all the way from Cincinnati, Executive Director for Creative and Performing Arts in Cincinnati, Adrian Hinojosa, a New Business Development Director for Smithers Foams, Jane Lacey, Brand Manager at G Lighting, Shannon Whalen, Advocate for Akron Women in Tech, and Mark Spisek, who's our Commissioner for Summit Metroparks. And we have a new player on our team, right? So he's from Larry Johnson, from the National Inventors Hall of Fame, which is a STEM designated high school near the College of Business. So thank you for joining us. He joined us barely 4 days ago. I, therefore, Jeff Fusco, Mayor of the City of Akron, Ohio, do hereby proclaim Tuesday, December 1, 2015, as Gaining Steam, Innovating STEM with Arts Day. So thank you very much for coming, and hopefully you will learn some and enjoy some, and we'll have a good time about all our proceedings today. Now, I don't want to cover the subject, so I want to share with you how the whole thing started. And the whole thing started as an experiment. And I teach a course in Management of Technology and Innovation at the graduate level, and we thought that it's important that we experience innovation. Because innovation is fuzzy, it's non-linear, it's confusing, it causes conflicts, and very often we only glamorize the success stars like Steve Jobs, and we don't really know what it takes. Night and days of work. In fact, last 3 nights I barely slept. So it takes a lot of work to innovate. So we thought we will experience that, and we did experience that. And without going into gory details of it, I think the result is pretty good. So let me begin, next slide, by saying that learning innovation by project-based experiential innovating. We can learn innovation by innovating. And it's hard to figure out the theory behind it, but I think it is important to innovate in small bits and start doing it if you want to do the big things. So one of the mantras we are going to use today is fail fast, which all the video designers use all the time. So I think we promise you that we will make 6 big mistakes today. Yep. So yeah, we're going to auction them off. 6 big mistakes, and in fact, an hour ago, I was getting some gifts for our speakers, and at Don Drum, who's our major designer in town, I was told, we can't give it to you unless we see your credit card. So finally, we worked it out. So there are going to be some mistakes, but I think that's the nature of the game of innovation. And a lot of companies don't realize this. A lot of companies are averse to failure, and they will, slay the person who makes a mistake. So I think it is important that we learn by innovating. Our university is heading in that direction. We're talking more and more about experiential learning. So I have a quote here, which is very interesting. The theory of relativity occurred to me by intuition. It did not happen in a reasoning, logical, step-by-step way, and music was the driving force behind his theory. And then he goes on to say how much his parents, made him practice music. Unidisciplinary, logical, step-by-step learning does not generate innovation. For innovation, we must have a multidisciplinary, parallel, intuitive, spontaneous experiential learning. So that's the challenge we have, and we all want to understand. So Picasso says it well. Everybody wants to understand art, but why don't we understand how birds sing or how we fall in love? And we can't. So it requires a lot more than only one part of our brain. Next. So here is an interesting point of view. That in the 20th century, we wanted to focus on reading, writing, and I can't spell, reading, writing, and arithmetics. And we were also focused on making, selling, and profit maximization. Because America was growing. America did not have competition. America had resources. America went and fought the war in other places, and at home was safe. But in 21st century, now that we are seeing early signs of America losing its innovative leadership, what we are now looking for, and I'm sure the speakers will talk for that, critical thinking, creativity, and collaboration. So it's hard to have an individual inventor like we had in the 18th and 19th century. Now we must have collaborations across multiple disciplines. And that requires, and this is why some of our students will be practicing communication, calculated risk-taking. We took a huge risk in organizing this in 10 weeks with no funds. And you were contacted and we put it together, and students thought they could not do it. They suggested we should have just one speaker. And I said, let's rub that against the definition of innovation. Then it won't be innovation. So I think risk-taking is important. And I think we have to learn to get the flavor of risk-taking and compassion. This is another very important point. We cannot innovate just for technology fix-ups. Right now, 150 countries are in Paris discussing sustainability. And they're going to look for technical solutions. And if we leave the poor behind, and if leave the have-nots behind, it will never work. Planet will not be sustainable. So I think we've got to keep the compassion piece up front for everybody to see. So a big argument for arts in STEM is that we use the whole brain and not just the left brain for STEM. And earlier I was teaching undergraduate class, so I was taking polls. And we had a very interesting discussion on more STEM, more arts. In K to 12, in college, should they be different? For men, for women. And it was hard to generate a consensus. So, left side, STEM talks about objective, logical, analytical, reproducible, consistent, useful, whereas arts, and I know closely a little bit about arts. For the past 4 or 5 years, I've been giving art tours at the Akron Art Museum. I used to take some executives to France and got exposed to a lot of great museums, and I came back and I said, I want to volunteer. So arts talk about subjectivity. Each piece of artwork is so subjective, and that's why we need to know more about artists as much as art. Intuitive. We don't talk about intuition in business schools, but intuitiveness, to fine-tune our intuitiveness is very important. And then we have sensual, perceptions, feelings, smells, feelings, emotions are important pieces. Uniqueness. I'll show you some slides where they are very unique, and first time when they came about, people used to wonder, is that art? And then aesthetic sense. And the right brain, we have more contextual pattern recognition and relational geometry, whereas left brain is literal, words, numbers, mathematical, and details oriented. So, big difference, and I think we need to learn to use our other sides of the brain. So, I think the art of innovation is elusive. And you have some very interesting comments here. We need stretch goals. Lot of people, many people are right now using the word innovation very flippantly. If I'm running my business better, I'm innovating. No, you're not. You're efficient. You may be inventing, but you're not innovating. And since I've been involved in this for about 40 years, I think we need to say what is innovation and what is not. There's innovation, there's invention, there is improvement, and there is imitation. And we need to know what are the boundaries of these terms. So we need stretch goals, and we had to have a stretch goals in this experiment. Then it has to be novel and creative. We have never done this before. These students have never done this before. You have never come to our place before. So you didn't know what monsters you were going to see. So this is all novel. Value adding. I think it is important that we add value, because if we want customers and we want people who adopt your innovation, then it has to be value adding. And that leads to jobs, that leads to wealth, that leads to welfare and benefits. And then finally, it's dynamic and unfortunately disruptive. It dismembers the business as usual. A lot of organizations are not prepared for that. A lot of schools are not prepared for it. A lot of universities are not prepared for it. A lot of companies are not prepared for it. This is disruptive. I saw that at Eastman Kodak. I saw that at IBM. These are leading companies which went through rough time. Kodak switched from film to digital imaging, went bankrupt after inventing digital imaging. They couldn't handle innovation because the chemical group making the film was very strong. They made most of the profit. So the digital side could not come in. And Fuji and Canon and other companies took over. So it's disruptive, and we have to be prepared for disruption. And leaders have to prepare the organizations for disruption. Students will misbehave. They'll say, I'm being innovative. And if our organization is bureaucratic, I had so many run into bureaucracy in the last 3 days. You know, it's an experience. Bureaucracy is for efficiency. effective organization. Innovation requires effective organizations. So I also told myself I'm not going to give lectures. So therefore, Duchamp was well known for doing a very mischievous act. What he did in 1910, that he submitted a urinal as a piece of art. And he started a new movement. It's called ready-made goods. And so, he was questioned, they didn't accept his art, but he started a very disruptive process. So now there's a huge stream of artwork based on ready-made goods. So capturing creativity. This art is very interesting because it's just a magnification of a comic strip, which I think a lot of young people are now into manga. So animation manga, and many times they look very similar. What artist did is he just magnified the art and then reproduce it in the large format. So you have some very interesting quotes by Matisse. Creativity is the artist's true function. Where there is no creation, there is no art. And that is a tricky proposition, because creativity is and does involve a lot of waste. So if you have an organization which is into efficiency, that's a challenge. Henri Matisse, the artist begins with a vision and then a creative operation starts. So innovation is creation and commercialization. Next slide. And it requires collaboration. Now this work is by Warhol, and he actually created a factory to make artwork. And sometime he said, it's my endorsement rather than my actual act of doing it. So it's very important that we recognize in Paris and after Paris that innovation will require collaboration. If I'm good in science, I need people good in technology. If I'm good in technology, I need people good in marketing. If I'm good in marketing, I need people good in accounting. We need collaboration across disciplines. So a major criticism about STEM is that they are pillars and they're not interacting. And I think we need collaborations across. Next. Now, this is an interesting proposition. Artists already use STEM. They research their materials, they research their techniques, they use geometry, they use visual. So artists are using STEM all the time. It's the STEM people who are not using art. So I think what we need to do is that artists have to learn to be innovative entrepreneurs, and entrepreneurs have to learn to be artistic. And so there has to be a bigger play between these different constituencies. Now we have 3 monster challenges. Recently I was invited in Cincinnati to be regional director for docents. So I proposed that I see 3 challenges. So one big monster challenge is there is very limited support of arts at the national level. They give $95 to $100 million for 320 million people, which is less than 30 cents per person per year. That is 1/10 of what Sotheby and other auction houses earns in one day. They will sell $1 billion in a day. So, but we as a nation think $100 million is too much. Why? Because there are people who think, politicians, policymakers, who think artists are weirdos. We don't want to encourage them. And until artists organize, and until we all organize, and say art is important for society, art is important for my life, that support will keep dwindling. Second, on average, an artist has $48,000 debt from art college tuition. And they make $0 to $5,000, 55% of them, $0 to $5,000 per year. They're not going to be able to pay debt, art debt from art. So I think we need to do something about that. And the third thing is, I think we need a better integration between art community and the larger community, particularly the economy side. So I want to say a few thank yous to get the whole thing rolling. We want to hear your expert opinions. We had gold sponsorships from Mary Ellen Hinkle. Is she here? No, well, she's a lawyer, she's busy, but she's very supportive. And Michelle Morris, Michelle Morris is from KWGD, and Mary Allen is the Research Foundation at Akron U. We had silver support with Dean Eric Amis, College of Polymer Science, Dean Craig Menzimer from Engineering, Bill Hauser, College of Business, and Dr. Akram Dar. And then bronze support came from Dr. Stephen Ash. He had to go home. Omar Zameli. Are they here? Any of you here? So, and then we had support from Audio Technica and Western Food Market and Ubaidullah Sheikh. And a very hard work put in by our graduate students. So if there are any quick questions, I'll be happy to answer. Otherwise, we'll get the panel going. Any thoughts? So shall we? Yeah.
How do you look at arts in the future? Arts and innovation in the future.
Okay. So like one of the papers, one of you guys pointed out that in China, they are including arts courses in all the elementary and junior high courses and moving into high school, required art courses. I did engineering, and I had 20% of my program in engineering was arts and humanities. So I really think the enlightened societies will go for art. And I think it's other societies which will not. There's another comment which is very often made, and that is, look at the ancient civilizations. All we remember about them are their artworks. We don't look at their engineering. We don't look at how they fought. We look at the arts they produced. So art lives. So I think civilized societies should encourage more of art. And I think Scandinavian countries do an amazing job. Netherlands does wonderful work. France, art is a way of life. Every policymaker, every state official can borrow an artwork from Louvre Museum to display in the house. I mean, just imagine the insurance cost, right? So I think in other societies, art is being valued, particularly as you go up the Maslow's hierarchy, right? Once your survival needs are met, you all want to then get into more aesthetic appreciation. So I think the developing countries will start. There's a big contemporary art scene in India. Some of the artists are coming out of China. Unfortunately, they often have to leave the country. But they are now becoming very famous. So I don't think art can be bottled down. And that's another very important job of an artist. They speak up and say things which nobody else is talking about. So I think arts will come. What do any of you feel? How's the future of art? You teach them.
I think I may answer that
Later.